It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. Sunlight spilled through the curtains, falling across the shelves in my husband's study. I had come in just to dust the books, to bring some order to the room he barely had time to use anymore. When I pulled open the bottom drawer of his desk, it didn't move. Locked. My hand hesitated. He never locked anything. For a moment, I considered walking away, but curiosity whispered louder. I fetched the spare key from the drawer above and turned it slowly. Inside lay a small, velvet box. It was old, covered in a thin layer of dust. My pulse quickened as I lifted the lid. A gold wedding ring gleamed inside. Simple, elegant, but engraved on the inside were two words that stopped my breath: Anna, forever. Anna. I read the name again and again, hoping it would suddenly make sense. But it didn't. I turned the ring over, my hands trembling. Beneath the name was a date, one I didn't recognize. My husband had never mentioned an Anna. And for the first time in years, I realized there were parts of his life I didn't know at all. That evening, I sat across from him at dinner, watching the way he moved, the way he spoke. He smiled as if nothing had changed, but I couldn't stop hearing that name in my head. Anna. He talked about work, about a new project, about traffic. I nodded, pretending to listen. His phone buzzed once, twice, and he flipped it over without checking. That small act felt louder than any confession. He had been distant for weeks, maybe months. Late nights at the office. Missed calls. The smell of rain on his clothes when it hadn't rained near our house. I had noticed it all but convinced myself it was stress, not secrets. But now, every word, every gesture, every silence felt like a clue. I found myself watching him differently, counting how long he stayed out, memorizing the times his messages came, tracing the tiredness in his eyes. When he smiled at me, I smiled back. But inside, my chest tightened. The ring sat hidden in my drawer upstairs, burning in my mind like a question that refused to rest. Was Anna a past he never told me about? Or a present he was still living? Either way, something in our marriage had shifted, quietly, dangerously. The next morning, when he left for work, I finally opened the closet I'd ignored for years. His old boxes sat neatly stacked, files, photographs, and keepsakes from before our marriage. My hands trembled as I searched through them, telling myself I was only looking for answers, not proof of betrayal. In an old album covered with dust, I found it, a photograph tucked between yellowing pages. He was younger, smiling at the camera, his arm around a woman I didn't recognize. She had bright eyes, gentle and familiar in a strange way. In her arms, a small boy clung to her dress. My breath caught when I looked closer. The woman was wearing the same ring I'd found in the drawer, Anna, forever. I felt the room spin. The photo wasn't old enough to belong to a forgotten past. It looked recent, maybe just a few years before we met. Was she his first wife? The mother of that child? Or worse, someone he still couldn't let go of? I closed the album, my heart pounding. The photograph felt heavier than paper, it felt like a truth I wasn't ready to carry. But one thing was certain, I couldn't ignore it anymore. It was time to ask him who Anna really was. That night, I couldn't pretend anymore. The photograph lay on the table between us, the edges trembling under my fingers. When he came home, he looked tired, his tie loosened, his eyes distant. He smiled when he saw me, but that smile faded when he noticed the photograph. "Where did you get that?" he asked quietly. In your old album, I said, my voice shaking. And the ring, I found it too. So tell me, who is Anna? His expression changed. For a moment, I saw panic flash across his face. Then he looked away, rubbing his temples. It's not what you think, he muttered. Then tell me what it is. I snapped. Tell me why you still keep her ring, why you never told me about her. Who is she, and why does this child look like? Enough, he shouted, his voice breaking. You wouldn't understand. The words sliced through the room. The silence that followed was unbearable. He stood there for a moment, breathing heavily, then grabbed his jacket and walked out, slamming the door behind him. I sank onto the floor, clutching the photograph to my chest. Tears blurred my vision, but one thought kept repeating in my mind. If there was nothing to hide, why did he run? I didn't know where he went, but I knew what I had to do. I would find Anna myself and the truth he was too afraid to tell. I didn't sleep that night. The sound of the slamming door echoed in my head until sunrise. When morning came, I picked up the ring again and turned it over in my hand. The date engraved beneath the name suddenly caught my attention: April 17, 2009. I searched it online, cross-checking every record I could find. After hours of searching, one result made my breath stop: an article about a car accident that happened that very day on the outskirts of town. 2 victims, Anna Miller, 29, and her son, Ethan, age 6. My fingers went cold. The names. The date. It couldn't be a coincidence. I drove to the address mentioned in the article, a small, quiet cemetery behind an old church. The grass was overgrown, the air heavy with silence. I walked slowly until I found them, 2 graves side by side. Anna Miller, beloved wife. Ethan Miller, our little star. I fell to my knees, clutching the ring in my palm. He hadn't been hiding betrayal. He had been hiding heartbreak. The woman in the photo wasn't a secret lover, she was his wife. And the little boy I'd mistaken for a stranger was his son. The truth hit me like the wind, gentle, painful, and impossible to stand against. When I returned home that evening, the house was dark. His car was parked outside, but the lights were off. I stepped inside quietly and found him sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. The photograph lay on the table beside him. He didn't look up when I spoke. I went there, I said softly. I saw their graves. His shoulders tensed. For a moment, he didn't say a word. Then, his voice came out low, trembling. It was raining that night. Anna was driving Ethan home from his friend's birthday. I was supposed to pick them up, but I got stuck at work. The truck lost control. His voice broke. I never got to say goodbye. I stood frozen, tears streaming down my face. He finally looked up at me, his eyes red, tired, and full of something deeper than pain. I wasn't hiding love from you, he whispered. I was trying to forgive myself. That ring, it's the only thing I had left of them. I sat beside him and took his shaking hand in mine. I thought I was fighting another woman, I said quietly. But I was really fighting your grief. He nodded, tears falling freely now. In that silence, I finally saw him not as a husband with secrets, but as a man who had once lost everything. A week later, he asked me quietly, "Will you come with me?" We drove back to the same small cemetery where I had gone alone before. The sky was grey, the wind soft, carrying the scent of rain. He held a bouquet of white lilies, the same flowers we had at our wedding. When we reached their graves, he knelt down and placed the flowers gently on the ground. His fingers brushed the carved names as if they were still warm. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he whispered, "I promised Anna I'd never take off this ring until I could forgive myself." He looked up at me, tears shining in his eyes. "I think I'm ready now." Slowly, he slipped the old ring from his finger and placed it on the grave. Then he took my hand and held it tightly. "You can love them," I said softly, "and still love me." He nodded, his hand trembling in mine. The wind rustled through the trees as if carrying their forgiveness with it. That night, for the first time in years, he wore his wedding ring again, the one I had given him. And as we walked away from the graves, I realized something I would never forget. Some rings aren't symbols of betrayal. They're reminders of promises life couldn't keep. And of love that learns to begin again. If you liked this story, please like, share, and subscribe.